I'm Chief Boatswain's Mate Nick Poklemba, and I live the Coast Guard lifestyle.
Devastating damage expected. Hurricane Katrina. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks. All gabled roofs will fail, leaving those homes severely damaged or destroyed. Partial to complete wall and roof failure is expected. All wood-framed low-rising apartment buildings will be destroyed. All windows will blow out. Persons, pets, and livestock exposed to the winds will face certain death if struck. Power outages will last for weeks, as most power poles will be down and transformers destroyed. Water shortages will make human suffering incredible by modern standards. Livestock left exposed to the winds will be killed. Once tropical storm and hurricane force winds on set, do not venture outside.
All right, my name's Nick Poklemba. I'm originally from Youngstown, Ohio. I joined the Coast Guard August 6th of 2002.
So what were you doing before you joined?
So out of high school, I didn't do great in school. My dad was a firefighter for 30-something years. You know, my mom was a school teacher, and I was looking to be a paramedic on an ambulance and maybe get into a fire program. But the fire department around my town was laying people off rather than hiring. So went and got my EMT certification and did my ride-alongs with the ambulance and found out it wasn't something I wanted to do. And looked to join the military, didn't know which branch I wanted to join. Went to the recruiting office and bounced questions off of each and every one of them and met up with the Coast Guard recruiter. And I didn't feel quite ready to be gone from the family for extended amounts of time. So I knew there were stations on the Great Lakes. There was places close to where I'm from that I could potentially have the ability to get stationed at. And initially, that was one of the main reasons why I joined, was to still be close to family, but still serve.
Yeah.
Yep.
How'd you get your EMT certificate? Who paid for that? What was that? Is that like a school or?
It was through the local college. Yeah, it was Youngstown State University.
Do you remember your company number in boot camp?
I do. It was Sierra 162.
Do you have any memorable moments from boot camp? You got one good story?
One of the big things that I remember was we had this recruit always getting in trouble and stuff like that, but he made it through. He didn't get reverted. He didn't get kicked out or anything like that. He made it all the way through, but it was our last week. It was our last week, and when you tuck your corners of your bed in, you have to have hospital corners. So your corner's got to be 45 degrees.
That's called a rack.
Your rack, yes.
For you non-boat
I'm
people.
talking to non-boat people. When you tuck your bed in, your rack, your corner's got to be at 45 degrees. You fold them up. And the company commanders came in. They were hammering people on their racks and stuff like that. And they picked out this one recruit and started yelling at him and getting in his face and stuff like that. And they're like asking him why his corners aren't 45 degrees, you know. And his response was, "Sir, I don't have a protractor, sir." And just the way he said it, you know, I'm doing this from memory, and it's been a long time. But the way he said it, company commanders, they're typically pretty serious in what they're doing. They had him, they both broke out laughing. You know, finally broke character a week before we were heading out of there.
Why did you choose boatswain mate?
Because I wanted to be the best. And that's the route you got to go. No, I was at the air station in Traverse City, and
out of boot camp.
Out of boot camp, and I was just mowing grass, plowing snow in the wintertime, cleaning toilets. Didn't like it, and so I asked my supervisor to send me TDY to a few different units. I'd already seen the aviation side of things, being at the air station, and that was a career path that I was debating on. But I got sent TDY to Station Sault Ste. Marie, and then I got on the small boat with the boatswain mates, and they're just ripping around Lake Superior, checking out some different aids and stuff like that. And I just had a blast. And it was, and I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. Went and struck BM down at Station Holland.
What does that mean?
Striking is where it's like you're on the job training. Rather than going to a school for your specialty, you do an on the job training at a site, at a specific site. So I went to Station Holland, and I was a part of Station Grand Haven, which is Coast Guard City, USA. And went down there, worked with the crew down there for, I think I was down there for 2 months, and got all my sign-offs done, and I checked all my boxes. And just prior to me going down there, I had submitted a few packages to go overseas to Bahrain. This was in 2002 still. And I was putting in all these packages to go down or go overseas. And I found out I was getting sent over there right as I was finishing up my striker time. And so went over to Bahrain. Did
you went over there as a non-rate or as a third
non-rate?
class?
Non-rate. Yeah,
Did
went
you
over
have
there.
enough time to make rate?
I did, but I did not take the test. I left before a test came in for me to take. So I went overseas as a non-rate, and spent some time on the shore unit over there, Patrol Forces, Southwest Asia, PAF 4 SWA, and we had an individual leave one of the ships, and I ended up filling his spot on there for a few patrols on the cutter Wrangle, and that was a good time. I liked that ship. And then I did another patrol on the Aquidneck right before I left.
So how long were you over there?
I think it was October 2003 to July of 2004. So it was roughly around 9 months.
So what units have you been to in your career?
Okay, so first unit was obviously boot camp. Went to boot camp in Tracing Cape May, New Jersey. Leaving there, Air Station Traverse City, Michigan. Deployed to Bahrain in 03 to 04. And since I was just TDY, I came back to Air Station Traverse City. Went and put my name at the top of the A school list, and I was gone within 2 months of getting back to Air Station Traverse City to Tracing Yorktown. So I went to Tracing Yorktown, went through the Boatswain's Mate A school, and graduated from there, and as a third class petty officer, and transferred to Station New York in Staten Island, New York. 2005 to 2009 was Station New York. I was one of the responding coxswains and crew on the Hudson River plane landing from Sully Sullenberger, and multiple other search and rescue cases out there. Some pretty big ones: helicopter crashes, airplane crashes.
What rank were you when you left there?
So I was there as a BM3, and then I made BM2 leaving there, and then went to another station in mid-Michigan, which was Station Tawas, small station. And
Station Tawas?
Tawas, Michigan, yeah, on Lake Huron.
Okay.
So it's on the other side, on the east side of Michigan. It was a good unit. I ended up staying there and ended up staying there for 6 years.
You stayed at Station Tawas, Michigan for 6 years?
Yeah, it wasn't the plan. I had a snafu in my
Snafu?
a snafu in my career, which
An oopsie daisy?
an oopsie daisy. Yeah.
Did you stay in E5?
I stayed in E5.
That's good.
Yep. I stayed in E5, and
Did you make E6 out of there?
I tested E6 coming out of there. I tested twice, and on the second time, I transferred from Station Tawas and went to my new unit, which was the Coast Guard Cutter Vigilant, 210-foot medium endurance cutter out of Port Canaveral, Florida. And while I was on board there, I found out that I made the cut for BM1. And so I was on board the Vigilant for 2 years, from 2015 to 2017. And enjoyed that job. Counter drug mission was awesome. I was a deck BM1, so it was a lot of deck work, painting.
You're also a boarding team member?
Yeah, boarding officer.
I was boarding officer as well.
Boarding officer. I was pursuit mission commander. So when you're chasing down the go fast, the pursuit mission commander is your lead boarding officer on the team, and he's the one who gives like the weapon commands for firing out and shooting out engines, warning shots, all that kind of stuff.
Where did you go after there?
And after there was the Coast Guard Cutter Liberty out of Auk Bay,
Juneau,
Alaska. And
what year was that?
That was 2017 to 2020. And primary mission on there was fishery enforcement, enforcing fishery laws, federal fishery laws.
So you were there for 4 years?
3 years on there. It's a 2-year tour. I extended for a year on there. And then enjoyed that one a lot. Great command again. Great crew.
Then you came to the real Coast Guard.
And then I came to the real Coast Guard.
The district.
Yeah, District 17. So I just drive in the other direction to work. And I like the job. I like the job up there because when you're at a unit, you're so unit focused. You're focused on what can I do to improve my unit only, and what can I do to assist my crew and the people that I directly work with. And being at the district, you have that oversight view. What they call it, 10,000-foot view or whatever it is, where you got all these different units, and you're working with all of them and trying to help and better, all of Alaska as a whole, which it's nice. I find it rewarding.
You have the opportunity to actually help the units that you've been at and understand how those units need assistance.
Yep.
Here's what I know about people on cutters. Every picture I see has got either a ton of fish, or a bear, or a deer, or a moose hanging off of it.
Yeah.
So
that's just the Alaska cutters. We get some fish calls and stuff like that on the bigger ships when you're out in the middle of the sea. But you're looking at mahi, marlin, stuff like that, fishing for that kind of stuff, and just not as much as you get while you're up in the Alaska area.
So to be a bosun mate, what kind of schools do you go to in order to fill jobs in the Coast Guard?
As a bosun's mate, so typically most people will go to A school. And you go there and they teach you how to navigate, how to drive small boats, search and rescue, all that kind of stuff. And then once you leave there, though, that's when the additional certifications come into play. And so for me, I've never had the opportunity to work aids navigation, but there is a whole bosun's mate side of aids navigation. So like your buoys and your lights and all that kind of stuff that help other ships stay safe. For me, it's always been they call it multi-mission, which is search and rescue, law enforcement, fisheries enforcement, coastal security zones, all that kind of stuff. And so for those certifications, you have to become a boat crewman on a small boat. And then once you become proficient enough with that, then you start working your way towards boat coxswain, which is a coxswain is the one who's operating the boat and the one who's in charge of the boat. And then for law enforcement qualifications, you need a boarding team member. Once you get that, then you can move beyond and become a boarding officer.
What about the heavy weather school?
So you have additional certifications beyond coxswain, just your basic coxswain. You have heavy weather coxswain and then a surfman. I was at a heavy weather station, but I never went to the heavy weather school. But we had a 47-footer, which has the rollover capabilities.
What station was a heavy weather station?
Tawas.
Was it?
Yep. That was
on the Great Lakes.
On the Great Lakes, yeah.
So you got heavy weather coxswain, then you got what's the surfman?
Surfman is That's the big boy boat drivers.
Isn't
I
that
guess.
that's only 2 or 3 different units in the guard?
You got a few. Pacific Northwest has got a bunch. There's probably like 5 or 6 Pacific Northwest. I can't remember them all, to be honest with you. And then you have some on the East Coast as well. Certain areas, typically where there's a bar, where you get some big breaking seas,
Yeah.
big rollers, yeah.
As a bosun mate, when you make E7, you get the opportunities to be an OIC,
Yeah.
officer in charge of stations. These
E6, E7 is the time where people will start sitting for the officer in charge boards.
And they're in charge of what? Just stations or ant teams?
Ant teams, stations, 87-foot ships, 65-footers.
My 87 had a master chief on it.
Yep.
Do you need any kind of schooling? Like actual, not Coast Guard schooling, but any type of education in order to
No.
succeed in the bosun mate world?
No, you don't need any type of education to succeed. Just
What if you wanted to go warrant and become a bosun? Does it help? Do you know?
for education-wise,
Yeah.
not a requirement at all. Having your officer in charge certifications help, but you're not required to have any type of degree or schooling.
You can go bosun without having an OIC
You can.
board, right?
You can. Yeah, it's a little more difficult to do. Typically, that comes around when you have a lot of sea time.
What qualifications have you needed for your job as a bosun mate? To do an actual bosun mate job.
Boat crewman, coxswain.
Were you required to get boarding team member?
Yep, boarding team member, boarding officer, law enforcement instructor, radiation level 2, underway officer of the deck, single point, dual point davit operators, deck in charge. But then for collateral duties at like a station, you're typically the law enforcement petty officers. You maintain all the law enforcement equipment and gear, conduct training. You're also the weapons petty officer, so you're in charge of ammo counts, any issues with the guns, all that kind of stuff. You have to do monthly reports for all of it. The collaterals can be overwhelming at times.
This is a big job.
Yep.
At what point in time did you know you wanted to make the Coast Guard a career, or did you join knowing you wanted to make it a career?
It was never the intent. The intent was to do 4 years and get out. 4 years came and went. I re-enlisted for another 4. Met my wife, and then had our first child in that second 4-year enlistment. When I got to my 12-year mark, that's when I was like, okay, now
You're invested.
I'm invested. I'm committed.
So tell me about your family and if they've had any hardships while you've been in, and anything that worked out really well for them because you're in the Coast Guard.
So I've got a wife of 17 years. I got 3 kids, ages 13, 11, and 4.
Okay. They enjoy you being in the Coast Guard?
Yeah. The ship down in Florida was pretty tough because we were gone for extended periods of time. And I don't know if it was as tough for them as it was for me. I would leave, and communication on the ships isn't the best.
How did your wife do while you were down there?
Maintained.
Yeah.
Maintained. Yeah.
Did she
They
work?
get into it. She worked, but you get into a routine, and that's one of the hard things about being on a ship was when I'd be gone for 2 months or whatever it may be, they would get into a routine of things. When I would come back, I interrupted that routine. Me coming back was like an interruption of the routine and things. And I'm like, why are we doing things this way? And why are we doing things that way? Being crammed on a ship, in a berthing space with 15 other people, not able to get away from anybody, missing your wife and your kids, and you got a lot of time to think about them while you're on there. Like you're working and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, but you're still thinking about them. About day 30, day 30 was like my point where I was like, okay, I'm ready I'm done with this. I'm ready to go home. And a lot of the guys kind of hit that point right around day 30.
Well, have your kids always had extracurricular activities to keep their times filled, or?
Not so much when we were down there in Florida. We did have annual passes to Disney, so my wife would take my kids out there all the time. So that was their distraction down there. Up here, it's been sports, nonstop sports, hockey, softball, figure skating, dance, you name it. It's been busy, and then I do my own stuff too.
Do you think being a Coast Guard member has hindered your life or given you a lot of possibilities that you wouldn't have had?
Oh, it's definitely given me a lot of possibilities that I wouldn't have had. I would have never come up to Alaska. This wouldn't be a vacation destination in my family's mind if we hadn't come up here. Living in every place we've lived was like I said, there was positives about it. New York City, when me and my wife would be able to go in and watch a Broadway show, whenever we wanted to. Go down to Times Square, watch the ball drop, hit Rockefeller Center, and the tree lighting and all kinds of neat stuff.
You got any regrets since you've been in the Coast Guard?
I regret missing a lot of the kids stuff down in Florida, but it's part of the job. Get underway for 2 months, 3 months, whatever it may be. I would come back and the difference in the kids, was drastic. And I missed my son's first day of kindergarten, first day of first grade, and first day of second grade. So like the first 3 years of his schooling, I wasn't there for anything. I missed two family members' funerals, 2 of my uncles that I wasn't able to be there for. I was underway on the ship. I've missed some Christmases, holidays, birthdays, all that.
If there's a young person that's watching this right now trying to decide whether they want to join the Coast Guard or the Army, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, I don't know, the health department, or if they want to go to college, or if they want to be a police officer or fireman, or what would you tell them?
If you want some stability with great opportunities for schooling, you got to understand the difference between the branches. The U.S. Coast Guard is not a go out and shoot guns and, our primary job is to keep people safe. Keeping people safe, whether it's dealing with marine oil spills or counter drug or migrant operations, everything like that. It's derived around keeping the country safe. Not being on the offensive, but being on the defensive. And I always liked that part of it. The search and rescue. People in trouble, going out there and searching through the night. You're exhausted, you're tired, you're cold, you're wet, but that moment that the sunrise pops up and all of a sudden you see that boat on the horizon, it makes it worth it. And you get over there and you pull those people off, and that makes it worth it.
When would you tell someone to join the Coast Guard instead of going to college?
Well, for me, that's an easy answer. Because the thing is, though, is that you can do college while you're in the Coast Guard. So why not do both? I know multiple people who have taken college courses while they've been doing their job. And the nice thing about the Coast Guard is that I've never experienced a place that didn't promote people going to school and didn't allow time for people to go to school.
Would you find it fair to say that if you don't really know what you want to do with your life, give the Coast Guard a try and you'll have the opportunity to go to college while you're in?
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the hard things, and I got to look at it too from like the ship perspective. Mm-hmm. If you're on a ship and you're gone for 3 months, that's going to be tough to do. Like you may have to hold off on your college courses during that time, just because connectivity underway on a ship is just not that good.
Yeah.
It's just not. And but shoreside units, stations, ships that you have your smaller ships that are only out for 7 days at a time. I knew lots of people that were taking college courses on the smaller ship that I was on, and they managed just fine. So there's definitely plentiful opportunities to get a degree while you're in, and you earn money while you're doing it, and you could be doing a cool job.
Well, Boatswain Mate Chief Nick Poklemba, thank you for your time, and thank your family for their selflessness and letting you be a part of the Coast Guard all these years.
Well, thank you.
And don't forget out there, if you're watching this video and Boatswain Mate Chief Nick Poklemba is the reason you go to see a recruiter and possibly join the Coast Guard, let them know about this video and let them know about Nick Poklemba, and let him get recognition from the Coast Guard. And again, thank you for watching this episode of the Coast Guard Lifestyle.